Good morning, good evening, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. As I said, I would come back and do a chat a bit later on, and so I am. I have invited the legendary Dr. J. Smith. However, whether he is able to make it or not is a little bit up in the air. So we may be being joined by Dr. J. Smith, or we may not be. However, in the meantime, it'll be a bit of an open chat for anyone that wants to go off and talk about anything. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot happening in the world at the moment, and I think it really calls for Christians to be wise and to be savvy about how they deal with these things. Peace be with you, Davis. How are you, bro? Hope that you're well. We've got let's think about some of the things that are going off in the news. We've got a terrorist attack in Reading, not a terrorist attack, but some kind of another attack that happened at another place recently where someone drove into a group of people with a car. I don't know if that's got covered in the media. We've got in Dijon in France, we've got armed groups literally walking the streets. We've got, peace be with you, Wendigo. What does Wendigo mean? Like, it sounds dodgy. Peace be with you, Hawaiian. Peace be with you, John. Peace be with you, Demosin. Peace be with you, Marion, and peace be with you, Phyllis. So, yeah, there's a lot happening in the world, and I think that Christians have to be wise about how we address these different things. So we've got what else is going off in the world? We've got the re-election of Trump coming up. Feel free to jump on, guys, if anybody wants to. And the church in all of these situations should be thinking how they respond as Christians from a Christian identity. Like, how do we respond to the challenge of racism without buying into the Marxism of BLM? How do we respond to Islamic radicals without going along with and the terrorist attacks, without going along with the liberal progressive narrative that there's three Abrahamic faiths and that we all essentially believe the same thing? What else? I mean, should Christians be giving Trump a blank check? Or should we be expecting more for our vote? Especially for you brothers and sisters in America, it's kind of like you need to demand that if Trump gets your vote, what you want from him is greater support for the persecuted church, a tougher line on abortion, a reinforcement of taxes to support the family. Like, you got to present Trump with a manifesto saying, give us these things and we as Christians will vote for you, and without that, then you're going to end up with what's happened so many times with the Republican Party, someone who gets the Christian vote and then does very little that's Christian with it. Do you know what I'm saying? So we've got Asif, who wants to jump on. We'll let him on. Well, it says that the device is not connected. I think you're going to have to try again, Asif. I'd come out and here we go. So I'll let Asif jump on now, guys. I'll let you on and we'll talk for a bit, and then if someone else wants to come on, I'll ask you to come off. Or if I find that the conversation's a bit stale, I might ask you to take a step back. So on you come, Asif, with your point.
Hi, Bob. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. And yourself? How are you?
I'm fine, Bob. I just wanted to join the conversation. As you know, the hot topic is the car crash interview of Mohammed Hijab and, his pal over in the United States, Sheikh Yasser Qadi.
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure you've seen that.
I haven't seen it all. Go on. Say
what
is it you wanted to say?
The only thing I wanted to say, Bob, is just for yourselves as Christian apologists, Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner. Do you seriously think it's worth debating these people who are so dishonest, like Mohammed Hijab, who has edited that footage, as you well know,
Yep.
and hidden it, even though many people have seen it? This is how honest they are. Now, surely the bottom line in a debate should be honesty. If you don't have any honesty and integrity, what's the point of debating the other person? He's always going to be dishonest. Is there any point in debating a dishonest person? And that is
I
my
think,
question for yourself, Hatun, Tash, etc.
yeah, and it's a fair question. I think what we've got to realize is that the Dawa team represent within the Anglosphere, within the English-speaking world, the elite of the Dawa initiatives, at least on social media, and it is important to debate them. Because look at their profiles, look at how many people follow them. You know, if I do one talk on here, I might speak to 500 people in a week. If I do one on so-called films, I might speak to 3,000 or 5,000 people in a week. If I have a debate with Hijab on his channel or Dawa on his channel, within a week that's going to be reaching tens of thousands of Muslims. And this is the thing that people don't recognize about the corner, and the church doesn't recognize about the corner. It has become, through social media, a strategically important place. Christians need to be there, and what we have are a few really hardcore professionals, in quote marks, like Hatun, DCCI. And then we've got the occasion. We've got lots of quacks. People that turn up wanting to be someone or thinking that they are someone. And then we've got, well-meaning, determined amateurs who turn up each week and speak the gospel. But the church hasn't recognized the strategical importance of social media, and it hasn't recognized the importance of the corner. And again, please tell your pastors and your priests and your bishops that they need to be sending things like, organized groups of evangelists to be working at the corner and to be using the media. Because I reckon there's probably, I'm not sure. Like, I can't make my mind up whether I put the figure at 100,000 or something like 500,000 people that are hardcore watchers of all the various different channels. Obviously, some channels more than others. That's almost a town's worth or a city's worth of people to be evangelized. Now, why would we miss that? Do you know what I'm saying? So I think it is important, Asif.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, that is a strategic point that you're talking about. But what I'm saying is, Bob, honesty trumps everything. I hear what you say, and I've approached my local bishops, etc. The only thing they're interested in at this current moment in time is virtue signaling. Now, that's their forte. Every single bishop, every single clergyman you see is trying to outdo the other one by virtue signaling. And I've seen that, and I've criticized them. I'm saying, well, if you can do that, why can't you virtue signal for persecuted Christians? And there's no
Amen.
answer for that. They're stumped.
Amen. No,
that's what I always. Yeah.
The virtue signaling, when you see someone virtue signal, it means that they have no ideology of their own. It means that all they're doing is that they're following what the culture tells them. They're following what society tells them.
Yeah.
They're not considering. Sorry, clicked on that by accident. They're not considering. They're not allowing their worldview and their activism to emerge from their own Christian identity and the Christian story and the Christian narrative. And that's the problem with so many bishops and so many priests, is that they take all of their political angles from the Guardian or from the Times or from the Daily Mail. And what they're not doing is searching the scripture, saying, this is who the scripture says that I am. So therefore, how do I express that politically? Which is what Christians should be doing. And that has got to mean solidarity with persecuted Christians, wherever those persecuted Christians are. And at the moment, Christians are being persecuted horrendously in Pakistan. horrendously in Iraq, horrendously in Syria.
Nigeria.
I was going to get there. Horrendously in Nigeria, horrendously in Central African Republic. Where is the moral outreach? Where is the leadership? Where is the leadership of the church to organize the community to rise to the challenges that it faces, as opposed to simply trying to turn all of us into an NGO for the sake of civic society, which is currently what our bishops are trying to do. They're trying to make us into some giant NGO for the purposes of serving civic society, rather than an organized group of people who are seeking to serve the kingdom of God and our brothers and sisters in Christ. You know, it's a lack of leadership. It's a lack of imagination. You know,
I mean, I'll go as far as saying they act like dummies. You know, to me,
some of them do.
Been in their company, and I've approached them with serious concerns. You know, I've approached them with serious concerns, and they're just bending over backwards, you know, to please, you know, asylum seekers, you know, all, you know, minorities, this, that, and the other. Every buzzword you can press, you know, they're trying for that, but they're not trying for the core issues. They're missing the core issues and going for the peripheral issues, just to tick their boxes, I think. And this is the thing that I've got to tangle with my local clergy, that they haven't got a backbone, they haven't got a spine. And I'm continuously calling them out on that, because I told them that, you know, every year they light up the cathedral red to show solidarity with persecuted people. And I said, well, why do you miss the Christian persecution? You're showing solidarity with every kind of persecuted person, but yet you're not showing solidarity with persecuted Christians. Now, what's wrong with you? And they really don't have an answer. I think it's just for a photo op, is what I got from my conversation with them. And just to get into the news to share, we tick in the box. We're doing social cohesion. We're doing all this, you know.
I don't think it's for the photo op. I think it's because they feel that they should be doing something to live out their faith, but they have no imagination on what that means. Like they're being more informed by the politics of the Western world than they are by Scripture. So I don't think they're doing it for Photoshop. I think they're doing it because they feel this desire to express their faith, but they have no matrix, no rubrics, no narrative, no meta-narrative by which to express it from a Christian angle. Because the thing that all of us in the Anglosphere need to recognize is that Christians haven't had a political vision for hundreds of years now. We've literally got to start again from scratch, and that's part of the thing that I'm working at myself in my own personal expression, my own personal determination, is to try and create a narrative by which a Christian politics can emerge. And that is based on two things. One, the church triumphant over all and in all. So in every sphere of society, the church is triumphant. That is, it is at the top, and it is in every sphere of society. So it is in politics and in media and in art and in economics and in social ethics and in the judiciary and and so on and so forth. And the other point, the other track to that dual track political narrative for Christians is this idea of solidarity with the persecuted church. And that means solidarity amongst ourselves as Christians, but particularly amongst the persecuted church, which means that we create the networks and the organizations and the structures and the ethos and the culture where Christians stand united together. And that's within your own fellowship, and it's within the fellowships within your own city, and it's within the Christians, within the cities, within the countries, and within the countries around the world. And this is the thing that we've got to move towards. Gone are the days when we can look to some kind of state to come and help us. Putin ain't going to do it. Trump isn't going to do it. Macron isn't going to do it. You know,
Yeah.
definitely Boris Johnson's
And
not
now
going to
there's
do it.
Boris Johnson.
So as Christians, we've got
No, there's no
to,
backbone. Yeah.
yeah, it's not about backbone. They've got
Yeah.
backbone to stand up for the things that they care about.
Yeah.
It's that they have no concern for persecuted
Yeah.
Christians because we're not taught to have concern for
Yeah.
persecuted Christians, and we're not taught to have solidarity with one another. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah,
Sure.
that's where we've got to come from. You know. Is there anyone
Yeah.
else that
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
jump
No,
in?
I appreciate that. Just going back to the
Go on,
original
Asif.
point, Bob. Do you think Mohammed Hijab's reputation is irreparably damaged now because there's evidence now, strong evidence, to link him with dishonesty and dishonesty in debate? Especially and what he puts out there. Is there any reason anybody should trust a word that comes out of his mouth? About the Quran, about the Bible, about Christianity when he's attacking Christianity relentlessly. Should anybody now have any doubt in their mind that this chap is thoroughly dishonest and he doesn't stand for
It's a great point,
honesty in
Asif.
debate?
It's a great point, Asif, and this will be our last point because then Sam wants to come on.
Yeah,
I would say this, that in the
yeah,
science of
sure, sure.
hadiths, the Muslims always boast
Yeah,
that if someone is found to be dishonest, you can't trust them
yeah,
to give you hadiths. And we've caught
yeah.
the
That's
Dawah team
correct.
out on enough
Yeah,
lies that Muslims shouldn't trust
yeah,
them.
yeah,
And it just says how little they
yeah,
actually practice all of the things that they talk. One thing they say in apologetics, and then what they actually do in practice is a different thing. And obviously, I'm speaking to the
yeah,
fanboys of hijab as opposed to just any old Muslim. I'm talking about the
yeah.
fanboys of hijab, because if they were
That's correct.
consistent to their own practices, they'd say, "I'm
Yeah,
sorry, hijab, you've acted dishonestly. We can't trust what you say about Christians, so we're going to go away and do our
yeah,
own research." Anyway, Asif, I'm
yeah.
going to ask you to take a step back so we can let Sam on.
Absolutely. Yeah,
God bless you. Lovely talking to you,
yeah,
bro.
sure.
You
Can I
take
come back
care.
later, Bob?
Of course you
Yeah.
can, absolutely.
Can I
Yep,
come
just
back
jump
later?
on the back of the queue. Yep,
All
just
right.
jump on the back
Cheers.
of the queue.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Peace with you, Sam.
Peace be with you too, Bob. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks be to God. How are yourself?
I'm very well, my friend. And I hope you're keeping well. Nice haircut. Like
thank you very
everyone
much.
during lockdown.
I've not had a haircut since, oh gosh, I think I had a haircut in January, and I haven't had one since.
I think I'm
So,
about the same.
yeah. So what was it you wanted to jump on and talk about, bro?
I just wanted to say how really the Christian apologetics in the park has really started to make an impact, I think, over the last, I would say, year and a half, 2 years. It's
Oh.
it's finally started to reveal like some of the misconceptions that all the Dawa members have made against the faith.
Is this my ex-Muslim friend, Sam?
It is actually.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to introduce you to Brother Sam, who was a Muslim and is now a Christian. Yep, there you go. Ham's a pirate.
Second time round. I'll happily admit, I guess, growing up as a Christian, it's more of a cultural thing, isn't it? I think that's a very fair thing to say.
Yeah, for most. So, it's kind of it's important to sorry, I'm just trying to multitask. Can't do that. Yeah, it's important. It's important. I think it's important that we own our faith and we own our faith journey, and do it with responsibility. And that's how you grow as a Christian, is when you own it for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's like when you grow up in like a Christian family and you like go to church every Sunday, and even like all the extra things that happen within that church community, which I did go to a lot. It doesn't really mean much to you when you're just brought up around it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You're kind of numb to it, aren't you?
Yes. Well, I mean, I wasn't brought up in a Christian family, but I do notice that. I mean, I'm a convert to Christianity, and now you're a convert to Christianity. So,
a proper one this time.
A proper convert to Christianity this time. you know. But in terms of the Christian faith, it's a case of if you want to grow, that the scriptures say, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Now that's really interesting, because it's saying that you're saved, but work it out. Work out what that means for yourself. What does it mean for you to be saved, Sam? What does it mean for you to be saved, Marek? What does it mean for you to be saved, Mikhail? What does it mean for you to be saved, Squawk? What does it mean for you to be saved, Animal? You've got to work those things out for yourself, and to live it out in your circumstances, in your situation. And that can be guided by spiritual fathers and teachers who can help you to think that out constructively, but you have to own the journey, because if you don't, the journey won't go anywhere, you know.
No, I agree. I agree with you there, mate.
But coming back to the main point, I think the talks in the park, because me and you encountered one another in the park, didn't we? When you were a Muslim. I don't want to get into all of that now.
Famous encounter.
Yeah.
Famous encounter that was.
I don't think most people will be able to place you, you know. Most people won't remember you.
Yeah.
But yeah, me and Sam met in the park when he was a Muslim. It got a bit heated, and now he's a Christian. So praise be to our Lord Jesus Christ. And who was it that brought you to Islam? If you just want to say.
It was kind of a combination of things, really. But I guess the first thing was, or the first Muslim apologist thing I ever saw was Ali Dawah. And I guess that all that did was just spark the interest, if you like. I think that's all that really did. And it was mainly through, say, the debates of EFD, or say even people like, I think it's SC Dawah, isn't it, where you've got people like Hashim and what's his name, Mansour, you know. Like, and then when you come across those, that's where you learn a bit more. Like Ali Dawah more just is kind of interesting rather than actual knowledge, I would say. Then you watch these for the actual learning and information. So yeah, and that's how it started, really. Because I guess what all that happened to me, you don't mind if I.
Well, me and you are going to meet up and we're going to do the full testimony later. So I don't want to spoil it, you know.
No.
But
all I was going to say was basically got reinterested in religion in general when I hit about 20. I just went, you know, and I guess I kind of just discarded Christianity. I can't really say why. I just did. I guess I kind of thought, I've been there, I've done that, and I don't think it's right, if that makes any sense to you. Like,
Sam, I don't want to get into your testimony just yet, because me and you are going to be talking about that in a detailed video. So, like, we've got it arranged to collect Sam's testimony, but it demonstrates. The reason why I asked that question is because it demonstrates the importance of the work that we're doing, and the fact that, you know, if it works for one side, it works for the other side as well. And you know, I hear the testimonies of people that I speak to who have been impacted through the work that we're doing, and you know, and that's why it's important that Christians recognize the strategic importance of the corner and the use of social media. Sam, just before you go, what would you like to say to the likes of Hamza, Mansour, Hashim, Ali Dawah, now that you're a Christian?
Just genuinely no hard feelings. Like, in terms of, you know, it's by no means, because I don't want it to come across as like a vendetta against them or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? That's
not in our way.
If I say anything to critique them, it's going to be out of pure love, and that's it.
Thanks be to God. Anyway, Sam, it was lovely to catch up with you. Do feel free to jump back in, but Asif's jumped back of the queue, so we'll just swap between the two of you guys, if you like, and hopefully if other people want to jump on, they can do. So if you feel like coming back on, Sam, feel free. The idea is that we get a sort of system going where people are coming on, having a quick chat, coming off, having a quick chat, next person, and so on and so forth. So you can come back on as many times as you like.
All right. Thanks, mate.
All right. Speak
Bless
to you
you.
again soon, possibly. God bless. And
Yep.
we'll be in touch about doing your full testimony, yeah?
Yeah, of course, mate.
Is he there?
Of course. Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, brilliant.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, did you? Yeah. I think you may be cut out. So I said we'll be back in touch about capturing your full testimony soon.
Yes, of course we will. Thanks, bro.
All right.
And
God bless. Take care.
I'll jump back to the back of the queue for a bit. See you, buddy.
Sure. Cheers. Okay. Asif, you're back up.
Hi.
And this is how it's
Hi,
going to go,
Bob.
guys.
Thanks for
Hi.
having me back on.
So, yep,
Yeah.
no worries. One second, Asif. So this is how it's going to work, guys.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to have a quick conversation point with each person that comes on and then move on to the next person and so on and so forth. I don't think Dr. J. Smith is going to join us. We were hoping to have him on, but I guess something's come up. Over to you, Asif. What is it you want to talk about, bro?
Yeah. Bob, once again, thanks for having me back on. Bob, just while we were on the, subject area of dishonesty in the Dawa team, etc., one of the things I picked up was I was watching a debate of yours with Adnan Rashid in the park, and they're always finicking about a word here in the Arabic and a word there. Oh, no, it means this. It doesn't mean this. It means this. So they're always, slipping and sliding between meanings. Now,
Yeah.
I wish if you'd have actually, you had your phone on you and you'd have checked on Google Translate what that word actually meant, and you would have busted Adnan Rashid there and then, because he was trying to play funny buggers. And it's just going back to the debate where he was talking about, he was talking about Muhammad dressing up in his, or cross-dressing in his wife's clothing or women's clothing. Now, the word he picked up on and he tried to emphasize was this word in the Arabic, imrati. And if you go on Google Translate, you can actually type that word and it comes out as women. It doesn't come out as wives, as he was trying to, imply and try to, beat down with, because they're always playing this game of, you don't know the Arabic. The Arabic actually means this. And I think a lot of the time, yourselves and other people are taken in by that and just go along with it. But, if you do stop and check the reference, you will be able to bust them on the spot. And I actually did that. And I said, what a lying, deceiving so-and-so. He's actually got away with that without getting checked on the meaning of that word. If you'd only taken the time out, you'd have busted him there and then, because a lot of your debate was just around that word.
It was funny because I mean I don't remember that particular example, but in the video I do know that he showed me what he was using, and one of the ways that it could be translated was a woman's dress, and we got him on that there and then. But it's the nature of the kind of debates that you have in the park that you end up having to think on your feet. And it's not always easy to fact check everything that someone is saying. You've got to try and remember the point that you want to make next. But what I have noticed is that within Dawa circles, it seems that the ability to trick someone or to trap someone or to deceive someone is almost like a virtue amongst Dawa circles. It's almost like you've achieved something if you can outwit this person through tricking them in some way. And they do this, and they do this a lot, and it's almost like they're proud of it. And I'm baffled. Christ said, "You will know them by their fruits, and by their fruits you shall know them." And if the religion that you follow leads you to the point where you think you've achieved something by being deceptive or tricky, then what kind of faith is that? What have you achieved through that? Sam was on. He was. Sam, you've disappeared, mate. I don't know if you're having problems. I was going to bring you back on, but yeah, if you wanna join us, you're more than welcome. So it's a case of Christians. We got to get educated. We got to learn. You know,
Yeah. I
I've
mean, I would
started
just
learning
ask you to
Arabic.
be more vigilant. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's
I
easy
would
to
just
say
ask
that,
you to be on
Asif,
your
but you know,
toes with
when
these
you're in the
people.
middle, when
Yeah.
you're in the middle of a debate, bro, it's not so easy when you're
Yeah.
thinking about all the multiple points that you've got to respond to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if
I mean,
you're more than
yeah, I
welcome
know
to
what
come
you
down
mean.
to the park and do it yourself if you think you can do better.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
no, no, I'm not knocking
I'm
you down,
joking.
Bob.
I'm
Don't
joking,
get me
Asif.
wrong. I'm not
I'm just
knocking you
winding
down.
you up.
You do an immense job.
I'm
You
just
do an
winding you up,
immense
mate. I'm
job,
just
a
winding you up.
fantastic job. But it's
Yeah.
just to make you aware that when we watch these, there's a lot of points which I think they're just point scoring for
Yeah,
nothing,
yeah, yeah.
and they
We
could
know that.
actually be beaten down.
Right, Asif,
And
I'm
they
gonna
use the
if you.
Arabic to hide behind.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely,
sure.
absolutely. We do that. So I'm gonna let Sam back on. As you can see, guys, we get through this
Okay.
rotation quickly. So
Yeah.
if there's other people that want to jump on, please do. If you want to come in. So if you want to go back to the back of the queue, and then you can come and join us again
Yeah.
in a bit, Asif. Hello again, Sam.
Hello.
Seems
Hello,
like it's
Bob.
just you two. If no one else comes on, I think I'll just have you two on, and we'll talk as a three. You know,
That's all right.
if no one else wants to get on. Yeah, go on,
That's all right.
bro. What is it
But
you want to talk about?
wanted to give a big shout out to Paperboy on his last two videos on regarding the EFD streams. In terms of how he points out the strategies they use to like not answer questions and stuff like that. You know, I think that was
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
like he deserves a big shout out for that. As that guy.
That absolutely. I mean, Paperboy is someone that I respect as a keen debater and evangelist at the park. He's very astute. He's very sharp, and he makes his point very logically and can communicate it very clearly.
Very patient as well. He is very
Yeah,
patient.
yeah,
He
yeah.
displayed
Sometimes,
that with Mansell. Like he did brilliantly there.
yeah, totally. I mean, the thing is, and this goes back to your point earlier, is that the Christians in the park are doing better. You know, Jay was pretty much a one-man army when he was there, but he was just one man. Whereas now there's much more stronger figures of Christians working at the park. You know, Kane, Hatun, you know, Godwin, Daniel, myself, Paperboy. I don't want to forget people, so please forgive me. I do have others in mind, but names just escape me for the moment. And so, you know, it's kind of like as Christians, we can be encouraged. The Dawah initiative, the narrative that they've created, has started to crumble. You know, think about how many points they've retreated on recently. They've retreated on the crucifixion. Now it's not a case that he was replaced, it's a case that he was crucified but he didn't die. They've retreated on Quranic preservation. Now it's not that it's preserved to a dot and every Quran is the same around the world. Now it's preserved in the recitation. They've retreated on the idea that, let me just think, the idea that the New Testament doesn't teach that Jesus is God. Now it does, but obviously it's not trustworthy. Their narrative is collapsing intellectually, and we're seeing it
I've
right.
noticed gradually that is happening. You know, it's some of the points they made 3 years ago are different now. You know,
yeah,
I've noticed that. I think one of the biggest turning points for me was always that hijab David Wood debate, you know, where how hijab said, what was it that he said? That's why the translators put for, not to the prophet, and yet David Wood said for the prophet all along.
yeah,
and I think I remember that being a small little light bulb moment that kind of made me think, oh, hang on, You know,
Yeah.
is there some things I should really look into here?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was, but also then watching the videos, of people like yourself, Kane. I gotta admit, I do love Kane, Paperboy, and even Jay Smith. Some of his older works, admittedly, the older works are mainly on the Dower channels, but still,
Yeah,
those are just
definitely.
a massive eye opener.
Absolutely. I'm gonna let in Asif and Rory come and join us. Asif, your device is not connected, so you need to sort that out, bro, if you want to jump back on the live stream. Gonna let in Rory come and join us. Rory, am I right in thinking peace with you, bro? Am I right, Rory, in thinking that you are also an ex-Muslim?
Yes, I am.
And now you're a Christian.
Yeah, but I haven't been baptized yet.
Not yet, but you will, thanks be to God. So one ex-Muslim Christian meet another ex-Muslim Christian, and they say that it doesn't happen.
Hello, Rory.
I've got two right here. So what is it you wanted to bring up, Rory?
I want to bring up the fact that the Muslims, always use our Bible, saying that Muhammad's in the Bible. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
well,
this is
another point from which they've retreated. You know, I remember when I used to go to the masjid. They used to use John 16.
People see me.
They can see you now.
Yeah.
They used to use John 16 as an example of a prophecy of Muhammad, and they've stopped doing that. They've retreated from that now. Now they just use Old Testament. I don't see Muslims using the New Testament to try and prove that Muhammad's in the Bible anymore. So they've retreated on that.
In ages, actually. Didn't they used to quote a bit in Deuteronomy? Am I right in saying?
Yeah. They still try and use Deuteronomy 18. They use Isaiah 42, I think it is, and then they use the Songs of Solomon. Because of the Muhammadin, but but they've stopped using the New Testament. Now, when I first got into this, when I was a young teenager, they used to go to John 16, and they were confident. They were confident that was an equivalent to Muhammad's name. But now it's kind of like they've abandoned that argument as well.
Hold on.
So, yeah. You can unmute your mic now, Asif.
I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. So
Hello.
it's a case that, yeah, you are. It's a case. Hello. People are having problems with their videos. Anyway, so it's a case of the Dawah teams and the Dawah circles. Their arguments are many of them are crumbling when tested. But more and more Christians need to be taught apologetics.
Yep,
and that's one of the problems in the church, is that there isn't enough interest in apologetics.
I remember when I first started watching. Oh, sorry. Go on, my friend.
Rory, you got to respond to what's being said, bro.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, Sam. You were saying.
I remember when I first started watching like all the Dawah videos and stuff, and you'd see like, I don't know, Hashim or Mansour or whoever.
No, Sam, we're having problems with your connection, bro.
Oh, can you hear me? All right, my friend.
Pray that I have
you
patience.
can now. Yeah, I think there was just a bit of a connection problem. Go on, try again.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, I remember when I first started watching all the Dawah videos, where with like Hashim or Mansour or Hamza, whatever, and it'd be like the title would be like, "Oh, destroyed a Christian" or something. But looking back, they didn't really know. They were like maybe Christians, but they didn't really know anything. If you get me, like they didn't really know how to defend their faith properly. Like, not saying, that's not to demean them or anything like that. They just didn't know how to actually defend what they believed in.
Yeah, and that's still a problem in large parts of the church. There's so many Christians, and let's just be honest, in the churches that you go to, how many Christians would you say would be able to deal with a Dawah argument?
Not many.
In
Maybe
my
one or
church,
two.
none.
I know.
What
I know
about your
certainly.
church, Rory?
I haven't got a church yet, but I've got a church near my area.
Fair enough. So, Asif, what about in your church? I think we've lost
Well,
Asif.
as
no,
I
there we
told you earlier,
Would you
yeah,
say
can you
there's
hear me?
would you say there's many people? Yeah, we can hear you, bro. How many
Yeah,
people in
no,
your
there's
church do you think could
none where
deal
I
with
am.
a dawah argument?
None whatsoever.
And
They
that's my
actually
point,
don't
guys.
even believe in
The
this
church,
kind of, engagement. They're all into interfaith and that narrative. You know what I mean?
and
Of
this is the
integration
point.
and just getting along and
Go on,
being
Asif.
nice, to each other
It,
and
it,
not upsetting
it,
anybody. So they're into a different narrative. They're not into all this at all. They're on a totally different level, with this interfaith and kind of nonsense, which only benefits the Dawa propagandists because they get a platform to churn
yep.
out their nonsense to the Christians, but yet they won't allow the Christians to respond with genuine questions because they, will tell them
Or
that's
rather,
Islamophobic.
how many
This,
Christians?
that doesn't fit the narrative. Just ask us the, basic questions. Don't ask us about, why Muhammad was married to a 6-year-old girl. Don't ask us, Islam was spread by the sword. Don't ask us about these difficult passages in the Quran or the Hadith. We're just here to, get along with each other. We're just here to eat samosas and drink tea.
I think
what's going on, really. So they're not able to respond.
Asif.
Can you hear me?
I think that yeah, I can hear you. I think that okay, I might end up just going back to me because there seems to be a lot of problems going on in terms of connectivity. Just talking to people in the audience, how is it coming through for you guys? Is it coming through all right? Could you put a 1 for yes and a 2 for no? I'll just wait for that to come through because there's always a bit of a lag between the question and the response. But I think this demonstrates the fact that Christians need to be taking apologetics seriously, and there should be apologetics being taught in every fellowship across the United Kingdom and across the entire church. So it's a case of like okay, someone's got their. Could someone turn down their thing? Mute your mics, guys. It's a case of like mute your mics, guys. Someone's got their. Someone turn down their. There we go. So it's a case of they've got to, Christians have got to develop their response, and that's got to come from us because it's not going to come from the bishops. It's not going to come from church leaders. They don't see a problem, but we have to deal with the problems of their poor leadership. Any thoughts on that, guys?
I agree because generally speaking, the Christian church as a whole is kind of just on the back foot a lot now, isn't it? In terms of it doesn't seem to really stand up for itself in any sense or way, be it politically or otherwise.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But you know whose fault that is? It's our fault.
Go on.
The leadership has failed, but that doesn't mean that we have to fail. We have to be the kind of church that the church needs to be. All of us have got to take that on board. All of us have got to engage with that reality. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on,
no,
Rory.
That makes sense because.
Go on, Sam.
No,
Sam, go on, Sam.
No, Rory first, man.
All right, Rory, go on.
I think the churches are not interested in apologetics. That's why they don't engage in it.
Yeah. That's what we're saying, and they're not interested in it because they don't see the use of it.
I don't think they see the issue either, do they? If you know what I mean. Like like in terms of because generally speaking, you've obviously had a rise in like Islamic converts recently, but even just atheism in general, you know,
Yeah.
society gradually has become more secular, and it's like why don't you just try and take a stand and try and say, well, this is something else, an alternative, etc. You know, they don't seem to do that. It's more just about the buildings, you know, keeping things like St. Paul's Cathedral just going.
Oh yeah, totally. That's exactly the problem, Sam. And again, it's about we, the laity, have to compensate for the failure of the leadership. If there's no real leadership coming from the leaders, then we, the laity, have got to do it ourselves. And if that means
Where
that
do you
we do
think this all
initiatives that
started
they
with the
don't
weak
like,
leadership? Where do you think this
it
weak
started.
leadership came from? Can I ask? Because
Okay, Rory, I've removed you while you sort out your camera problems. Are you wanting to talk, bro? Like, yeah. So in terms of the sort of situation that we've got, Sam, it's kind of like I think it started when it didn't start at one thing. You can't point to one point in history and say this is where the problem started. There was a series of different things. Some of it has its antecedents in the Reformation. Some of it has its antecedents in the Enlightenment. But ultimately, it all kind of, over the course of history, ended up separating the identity of Christianity as a thing from who we are, and separating religion from politics, and emphasizing the ideas of this world over the ideas of the next world. So it became about this life, you know,
rather
and
than the
what we do in this
hereafter.
life rather than the next life. Amen.
I
Yeah,
get.
that's it. And Christians have got to recover that it's the hereafter that's more important.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because I guess
Rory, you're going to have to turn your camera off to come back
Sorry.
on, bro. Okay, Sam's gone. Right. So, I mean, actually, guys, I'm going to start to wrap this up. So I'm gonna let Sam and that lot return to the chat. So it's just going to be me now. If there are any questions, do put them to me so that I can see that being directed to me with an @ sign, and then I'll. Ooh, gosh, Sam, I'm kicking you out of the studio, bro. I'm closing down. But Takia Watch, who hasn't spoke, because this is the first time I've had an opportunity to speak to you live, I'm going to let him on and chat with you guys. But I do want to thank Rory. I want to thank Sam. I want to thank Asif for your contributions and coming on. Rory, when you come on, mate, turn off your camera, because while you're trying to figure out your camera, it distracts everybody, bro. So I'm going to bring on Takia Watch.
Hello,
Peace
how you
with
doing,
you, Takia.
brother? How you doing?
I'm all right, Simon. How are you? Thanks be to God.
God bless.
You okay?
Yeah, I just found out you're about to go offline, so I'll keep it short. I guess what I wanted to say is, I don't know specific verse how to say it in English, but in my language we call it sowing man. The passage when basically the seed, sometimes it lands in good ground, and sometimes it lands in bad ground. And what do you call it in English? Do you know what I'm talking about? Christ was giving this example that
The parable.
Parable, yeah, but
the parable of the sower.
Yes, okay, sower. So in my language, we call it sowing man. Yeah,
the parable of the sower.
Yeah. So basically, this parable is really fantastic because it speaks about that you've heard the word of God, and sometimes it will land in a good place, but Satan will come and take it. Other times, it will not even land in a good place. And then a third example is when it lands in a good place and it bears good fruit. So if we see ourselves to be in the third category, when it lands in a good place and it bears good fruit, then that should be shown in our works, right? So, for example, Christians have really turned the game in Speaker's Corner. That's really good, and we need more people to participate in that. But there's also other roles that we can take. People can start YouTube channels, re-upload their videos, or like Asif said, that if you see someone saying something deceptive, then you can just translate that video with the passage of Arabic and show how he was inaccurate and re-upload that. And yeah, it could be manifested in different roles that you're bearing good fruit.
Yeah, it's about imagination, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Like
And
every Christian has got a role to play. They've got to think about how they use their role. Sam, I don't know if you can hear me, bro, but I'm not letting you back on because I'm bringing this to a close. I'm just letting Takia Watch talk because I've not had a chance to speak to Takia Watch before. Coming back to your point, Takia, it's kind of like the everybody has a role that they can play in this struggle, the struggle for the church triumphant. But you've got to use your imagination to see where you fit in the bigger picture. For some of you, it might just be being a faithful parishioner and a stalwart of your particular fellowship. But particularly in our circle, in this thing that we're doing in terms of tackling the Taoists, is, it is exactly as Simon says. It's kind of like, can you speak Arabic? Can you help with the Arabic? Can you re-upload videos? Can you spread videos? Can you introduce people to the work? Can you, there's multiple different ways that everyone can contribute. And it's time that Christians started pulling together. And by pulling together, that means a lot of you, particularly those of us at the front end of this, have got to swallow your pride. I've got to swallow your pride, because there's too many individual petty Christian rivalries, and I think that Christians have got to have some humility, have this mind in you that first was in Christ, that whom having what's the passage? I can't remember it. Whom being equal with God did not grasp at his equality, but humbled himself to being the servant. That was a moral teaching before it was a doctrinal one. And that's the kind of attitude that we Christians have got to have. We've got to start pulling together on this in terms of fighting the good fight, warring the good war, as it says in Scripture. Your thoughts, Simon?
Yeah, definitely. And I also, first of all, I want to say I'm really proud of the Christians. I'm really proud of the Christians. I've been doing activism since the Caliphate was born, 2014, in July, August. And the difference that I see right now, it's day and night. We were so lonely. Christian Prince was on Pal Talk. Right now, he has an army of probably like 60 channels that shares his video every week. We're an army right now. Even you can take a break 6 months, the movement will not be affected. So we are doing really, really good compared to like 5-6 years. And we're going to double this in the coming years. And then I want to encourage that we all have talents in different ways, right? And for example, there's a passage, I don't remember which chapter it is, but it says basically those who give the prophets a glass of water will gain the same benefits, will reap the same benefits as the prophet's work. So with that, I would say that there is even a small help that you're doing, you will gain, basically reap the same benefits as.
Did you just quote what did you just quote there?
Passages. It's in Matthew. I think it's 5.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. No. I remember the passage. Yeah. It's this idea that if you share in the work, of the prophets, you reap the reward of the prophets, and it's a principle. If you share in the work of the evangelists, you reap the reward of the evangelists.
Yeah.
Because Christ, there is that judgment of our works that is to come. We are saved by what Christ has done for us, but there will be a judgment of our works. Not for salvation, but for the reward that comes with the salvation. And it is a case of, as Christians, what reward do you want? I've just got a message from Jay. He wants to join the chat. I was actually bringing it into land. Simon,
I'll give my space.
Yeah, it was a real privilege to speak to you. I'm going to invite Jay on. I mean, this is not what I planned, actually. I was going to stop, but I can't obviously turn down an opportunity to speak to Jay Smith, can I?
Of course.
Could
I just read a passage?
Yes, certainly, bro.
Yeah, so it's Matthew 10:40. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me. Anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. Here's 42. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to the little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. So with that said, God bless everybody. And as you see, that whoever helps those who are sent by Christ, they will reap the rewards and benefit from it. Okay,
Thanks be to God. Yeah, thank you, Simon. God bless you, bro. Just gonna email the lovely Dr. J. Smith and see if we can get him to come and join on our show. But just sort of continuing on that point, I just want to say it's kind of like, where is your place in this struggle? You know, what can you do to help? What have you got that you can do to help in this cause? Like, you own it. You make sure that you have got the wherewithal, the initiative to do your part. Now, don't feel that it's a case of, you know, you've got to own the whole thing. It's not your responsibility to solve every problem, but it is your responsibility to do the bit that you can, you know. And so I would encourage all of you to do what you can to help in the direction of seeing the church triumphant overall and in all, you know, and do your bit. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to solve all the world's problems. I'm just trying to solve the bit of the problem that I can tackle, and then work with other Christians to tackle the problems that are bigger than me. And that's what we've each got to do in this, with the aim of helping to alleviate persecuted Christians, and with the aim of seeing the church triumphant overall and in all. Now, I've just emailed Jay. He may or may not be joining us. I was actually going to stop. However, you know, it's the opportunity to speak to Jay. I don't know how long for. Maybe half an hour if he is able to come on. Just bear with me while I communicate with him. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, guys, I want to set down that challenge for you to have a reflection and a think about what it is that you can do in this struggle. In the meantime, I'm now going to bring in the lovely and famous Dr. J. Smith to come and chat with us. And I'll try to keep this going as long as I can, but I was just planning on doing an hour. Peace be you, Jay.
Hey, Bob. How are you? Can you hear me?
I'm all right, thank you. You're an hour late. Yeah.
Bob, I've been waiting here for an hour.
Thought we said 7. It's now 8.
How can I come until you send me a link?
I have been.
You sent me a link
right.
2 minutes ago.
Fair enough. I'm. Anyway, I messaged you an hour. He's run off. It's not.
You can message me all you want, but I need a link to get onto StreamYard. You get
sure.
There's millions of StreamYards. I don't know which is yours.
Yeah, no worries. Anyway, you're here now. So, we've seen some interesting developments over the last couple of weeks.
Have you been following them?
Not intensely, not closely, but I've been keeping in touch with it loosely, and it's a spectacular vindication of everything you've been saying for 20 odd years.
It's I think this is the best I've ever seen it in 20 years. I have to say that much. Certainly, we've known. I mean, what they're coming up and what they're bringing up is nothing new to us. It's not new to you. What's different now is to have people like Yasser Qadhi and Shabir Ali of their stature to admit what they've admitted in the last month. Shabir Ali did it on May 19th. Yasser Qadhi did it on June 8th. And that crazy interview that he had with Muhammad hijab. And what you're seeing here, and this is, I mean, listen, this is nothing new. The whole Qira'at argument is not new at all. And the Qira'at has been around for 1,000 years. This has been around for 1,000 years. Muslim scholars know this, but they don't let the world know this. This is something that was not supposed to be known to the rest of the world. Now, any of us who are academics who have studied this, I've been studying this, you're right, for almost 40 years I've known this. But it's not something that Muslims on the ground know. They don't know this on the streets. Muhammad hijab, can you see if you watch that interview, can you see his body language? Can you see how he was even trying to interrupt Yasser Qadhi from saying what he was saying, trying to shut that down and trying to finally turning to him and putting his hand out and say, well, here, let me just ask you this. What would you write on this blank piece of paper? What would you write on this open notebook that's blank? What Quran are you going to talk about? Is it going to be Hafs? Is it going to be Al-Duri? Is it going to be what? He couldn't even get that out before Yasser Qadhi said, this is not something we talk about. This is not something. He just got done saying 10 minutes earlier to Muhammad hijab. I had a crisis with this back at Yale University 25 years ago. And it's obvious he's still in crisis. He doesn't have an answer. And yet he is probably the greatest scholar, certainly in the West. He is the greatest scholar we have in America for Muslims. He has a PhD from Yale University on this very material. But as he was being pushed into a corner by Muhammad hijab, who, bless his heart, Muhammad hijab went through a crisis. And you can see him in the video that we put up last week. He was there in the crowd on the 2016 when Hatun and I were raising all these Qurans. We were holding them up, 26 of them. That was 4 years ago. He was the one in the crowd. Muhammad hijab was the guy in the crowd who was pulling everybody away. Get away, come with me, he was saying. Now, he's 6'7", 6 foot.
I think it points to me something that Dr. Yasser Qadhi said, which is, we don't talk about these kind of things to the uninitiated, because they recognize it can be damaging.
Now, let me ask you something, Bob. Is there anything we don't talk about in Christianity to the uninitiated?
To the uninitiated, I think not in terms of our essential doctrines. No, everything is quite open. We don't have Gnosticism.
This is the one essential doctrine that holds everything up. Because if you don't, remember, the Quran itself makes this claim. It's the Quran itself that says it's eternal. It's the Quran itself that says it's uncreated.
Yeah.
Chapter 85, verse 22. It's the Quran itself that says in chapter 10, verse 15, in chapter 15, verse 9, in chapter 18, verse 27. Those are three areas where it says God will protect his dhikr, which means his word. That is God himself that will protect it and guard it. So the Quran makes this claim. This is not anything new. This is not anything that Muslims, and so Muslims have no other choice but to make the claim of self-preservation, that it has to be preserved because it's always existed. And what that's saying is there is no human interaction. It cannot be any possibility that humans have anything to do with the word of God. How can humans change, decrete or accrete anything if it's already eternal? If it's already existed, it has always existed co-eternal with God. Can you see the problem? So
that's something. That's something that I watched a program of the Dawah group, and it was Mansour, Adnan, Rashid, Ijaz, and they were saying they said that preservation doesn't prove divine origin, but then which is true, but then Adnan Rashid said, but if something is of divine origin, then it has to be preserved. So he's making that statement that if it's divine, it's got to be preserved.
Okay, and
now that's obviously an Islamic logic.
And see, here's something that they don't want to talk about. They would rather we just keep on this subject about Qira'at, because Qira'at, you can say, okay, the originals are exactly like that in the heaven. The original, the Uthmanic recension, that which Uthman had Zayd ibn Thabit write in 652, that is the same as in heaven, but we don't have the original, so we are dependent on all these. And see, back at the time when Uthman was creating or canonizing the text, he sent it out to 4 different cities. Some say as many as 9 different cities. Those we don't have. We don't have any of those 4. We don't have any of the 9. We don't have anything from the mid-7th century at all. All of those 4 guys will support that. So what they're saying is, but we do know that you could not even read the text of that original one because it didn't have any dots, it didn't have any vowels for able to read it. So what happened is the dots had to be created, the vowels had to be created, the Dhamma, the Kasra, and Fatha. That was done in the 8th and 9th century, and it was the late 8th century and the early 9th century that you had many different readers. These are called readers. These are qira'ah. And there were 7 that were considered to be canonical, And when you look at those 7, you will see their dates are all in the 8th and 9th century. Not one of them was living when Muhammad was living. See that problem right there.
Yep.
Not one of them knew Muhammad. Not one of them heard Muhammad. Not one of them heard this original text. So how could they be the Sahaba? This is the lie that Muslims are telling us. They're always saying that these are the Sahaba. They were there. Muhammad knew of 7 different readings, and these are the 7 that were chosen, and these are the 7 readings that Muhammad's referring to. Not one of these guys was living at that time. They all did this in the 8th century, 100 years later. Now, it was only not just those 7. Another 3 were added, so now it's up to 10.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that, the place that Muslims are retreating to now is this idea that the recitations all go back to Muhammad, but they can't even agree on how many. Some say 7 and some say 10.
See, no one's looking at the dates, and this is why I'm laughing, because I said, "Boy, they're walking into a trap. They're making themselves." How many times have you heard Shabit Ali say this? How many times have you heard Yasser Qadi say it? How many times have you heard any Muslim friends say they can trace the lineage of these recitations all the way back to Muhammad? You just said it in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they're retreating to, and it's
trace it back to Muhammad. What name are they referring to? Who and where are that name and those names amongst these 7? See, those 7 are well known. We know who those 7 are. Do you know who they are? Let me I can read them to you right now. Hold on a minute. Let me get it up here. I'll read it to you right here. It's fascinating that no one's asking this question. Okay, here they are. These are the names. Nafi al-Madani. Nafi from Medina is number 1. He's the first one. Ibn Kathir from Mecca, number 2. Abu Amr ibn al-As from Basra. Ibn Amir al-Damask from Damascus. Asim ibn Abi al-Najud from Kufa. Hamza al-Zalyat from Kufa. Al-Kisa'i from Kufa. Now, I've given you the 7. Those are the 7 canonical readers, right? When you want to know the dates they died?
Oh, yeah, no, it's later.
770, 736, 745, 772, 805. Not one of them is from the time of Muhammad. So where is this notion that there were 7 readers that are considered to be authoritative at the time of Muhammad when all of these are 8th century? None of these are 8th century. But if you notice, I've not said Hafs there in any of those. Where's Hafs? Where is this guy?
Carry on.
Where's this guy?
He's later.
What he uses today. His name's not there. Have you noticed that?
I did notice.
Have you never questioned that?
I've not got around to it now.
Do now you know where to go. Can you see why we're laughing? This is fun because they're walking right into their own trap of their own doing. They are the ones that are telling us this is nothing more than 7 readings. This is nothing more than those who heard Muhammad repeat it, and how Umar grabs the strap of the neck of one of the readers and hears him reading it differently than what he's heard it, and grabs him and pulls him and pushes him right there into front of Muhammad and says, "Read what you just read." And Muhammad listens and says, "Oh, that's perfectly okay. That's one of the 7 readings." No, it isn't. None of these readers were living at that time. None of these readers were even living in that century. Well, they were born in that century, and they were little kids in that century, but not one of them was living when Muhammad died. Not one of them was.
It's a post hoc projection onto the past.
Okay, then where does this one come from then?
This is what I'm saying. It's a post hoc presentation into the past.
That's not what they're claiming. Have you noticed? No one's claimed what you've just said.
Well, obviously not, because it'd be problematic if they did. But it's kind of like I think what's really interesting is the fact that I remember when I first got into this, because you inspired me actually to get into this thing many years ago, and I remember when I was getting into it, people were very clear. The Quran is dot for dot, word for word, letter for letter the same. Always has been, always will be, and is everywhere around the world. And that was the claim that I was introduced to. That was the shahada that I was invited to take. This idea that this would be the new belief for me if I embraced it. And what I've seen with the work of Hatun Tash and yourself, Dan Brubaker, Keith E. Small, and others, is that narrative has collapsed. That position has collapsed, and they're literally right before my eyes. In the last couple of weeks, are attempting to rewrite the whole narrative. They're literally attempting to rewrite the whole narrative in front of everybody. We can all see them do it in real time.
Well,
and they're attempting to rewrite the narrative.
I would like to believe that that's true. They're not rewriting the whole narrative. They're actually keeping to the same narrative. Have you noticed what what our good old friend Qadi has done just this week.
I think what we're talking about is what is commonly believed. The circles you're talking about are the apologists. Commonly believed, lots of Muslims think that the Quran has never been changed at a textual level. And that's certainly been my case. And I'm just going to ask everyone in the audience, those of that have interacted with Muslims, have you heard that claim from Muslims? This idea that the Quran has never been changed dot for dot, letter for letter. It's been preserved as a text. Put a 1 for yes and a 2 for no, or 2 for disagree, as in you heard it differently. It'd be interesting to see what people say. But go on, Jay. You were saying.
No, I mean, even Qadi himself had, when he was partly pushed to shove in that interview, and he was asked by Hijab, which is, how did you get over this crisis at Yale? How did you solve that crisis? He says, I never once doubted that the Quran was uncreated. I never once doubted that. I wrote everything word for word that he says, that the Quran is uncreated speech of Allah, that the Quran is preserved, that the Quran is, he almost went into a mantra. In other words, just don't bother me with the facts. My mind's already made it up, because this is what I've been taught since I was a child, that you don't even ever go past that. And remember, I don't know if you've seen the interview, but he puts his hand up here and he says, we in Islam, we have a huge respect for the Quran. And we have a red line, he called it, beyond which we don't go. And this is that red line. You don't question its preservation. You don't question, he said. We don't question. But see, in Yale, they don't have a line. They can go anywhere they want. Mm-hmm. These are Western scholars. These are from a Judeo-Christian environment, our environment. This is what we do. This is, why do you think historical criticism was invented, Bob? It was invented on the Bible. Redacted criticism, source criticism, these were all invented. These were all created to confront the Bible with these very questions. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any such, we wouldn't have this discussion today. We wouldn't be asking these kind of questions unless it had first been done at the Bible first. And so we paved the way for the rest of the world. Now, finally, here comes Yasir Qadhi 25 years ago. He goes to Yale University, one of the most prestigious universities in the world, and he goes to study Islam there. Obviously, an odd place to study the Bible. I'm sorry, to study the Quran. Why would you go to Yale to study the Quran? I don't know. Nonetheless, evidently he wanted to have that degree. What he didn't realize is once he went and he heard his professors, they were going to ask questions he's never heard before, because these kind of questions you don't get over here in the East, in the traditional world. This is the world of Muhammad Hijab. This is the world of Ali Dawa. This is the world of Mansour Ahmad. This is the world that you encounter there at Speaker's Corner every Sunday. That's this over here. And this world, this traditional Islam, represents, I would suggest, 99% of all Muslims. The world Yasir Qadhi was going into, and Shabir Ali got his degree from, because he went to Toronto University. Yasir Qadhi went to Yale University. That world over here, that academic world of Islam, only I think represents 1% of all Muslims, a very small percent. And that world has never collided with this world, because as long as you stay in that world, as long as you stay in those circles amongst those scholars, Western scholars, they don't even have to hear these claims.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sitting here, I'm in both worlds. And when I go to these conferences where there's all these academics there, they don't even begin to talk they don't even know what these guys are saying and these gals are saying. They have no idea what 99% of the Muslim world is saying. This idea of self-preservation, I just had a scholar sent to me from Australia. He said, Jay, this is not even a question we bring up in academia. I said, no, it isn't. You're right. It's obvious that there's no Quran from the 7th century. We know that there's no manuscript. We know that no Quran exists. So why are we even talking about? That's not something we talk about in academia. See, now Yasir Qadhi was in that world, and he was hearing these kind of statements, and he didn't know how to answer that because he'd never been prepared for that. And most Muslims who go to academia and go to that level at that big a university, which is very historically critically correct, they know historical criticism there. It's coming out of their ears there, because that's the first thing they ever attack. Notice though, in Yale University, they are almost primarily attacking the Bible. In the courses he took was the first time he'd heard this historical critical analysis, and it gave him a crisis. That was 25 years ago. 25 years ago, I was debating this with Dr. Jamal Badawi. 25 years ago, I did a debate on this very subject at Cambridge University. And I gave 20 historical challenges to Dr. Jamal Badawi, who was at that time the leading scholar. He taught at Halifax University in the Muslim world in the English language. And he could not even deal with one of those 20 questions.
Have you got that recorded, Jay?
Say again?
Have you got that video? Have you got that debate recorded?
It's recorded. You can get it. I don't have it myself personally. Others have it. You can just put. No, hold on a minute. That one is not recorded. Sorry. That one is not. It was too early. Remember, we didn't have iPhones back then. We didn't have.
Yeah, yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame that a lot of you. It's a shame that that stuff like that isn't being recorded. I think what's going to be interesting is the fact that potentially in 100 years' time, or maybe 250 years' time, they will have finally achieved the thing that they've struggled to do for 1400 years, which is to standardize the text, because they're pumping out the Hafs version from Saudi Arabia at, I think it's like 1 million copies a year. And obviously the other texts from the other versions, they will disintegrate. They'll eventually vanish. I don't know if they're still being published. I know the Wash one is in North Africa, but how long that?
All of them. You can. Hutun has bought 37 in just the last 4 years. She hasn't personally bought them. She's had others buy them for her. She's in London, and they bring them to her. They only cost a few dollars. You can get them all. In fact, one is just coming. I'm just getting one now. That's coming in the mail. It's for the Bridges. It is the first 10, the 10 most authoritative. What is the readers, the 10 readers. They're all coming, and they all have them with different colors as to where the variants are. They're very well aware of variants. Remember, Hutun's team has found 93,000 variants, has found 93,000 differences in the other 23 from the Hafs, this one here. That's just comparing it with this one here. Now, that is not the most damaging material, Bob. What we're talking about is fine. It's happened the last 2 weeks. This is destroying people like Yasser Qadi and Muhammad Hijab. The fact that they had to censor from the Muhammad Hijab had to take that out of his recording. That's no longer up in his recording. You will see his interview with Yasser Qadi only goes up to 1 hour and 16 minutes. What happened to the 29 minutes where all the damage was done?
It's still on Yasser Qadi's. Yeah, it's still there with Yasser Qadi.
But you know what Yasser Qadi has done? He stopped all comments.
Interesting.
And now he's gone against David Wood, and he's trying to get David Wood's interview, all of his videos against him to be taken down. He's putting strikes against him. Why would you do that?
Why suppress information? Why not? Why suppress information? Why not just come forward and go, this is why Jay is wrong, this is why David Wood is wrong, here's why they're wrong. Why not just do that?
Well, that's because you live in the West. He lives in the West, but he's now got to deal with the thousands upon thousands. There were thousands of comments there, and they were shaming him. And they were saying, you're going to be held accountable for all the Muslims that leave Islam for the comments you made on Judgment Day. You're going to be held accountable for all this apostasy, and it's all going to be on your head. Comment after comment after comment from Muslims. So he shut down all the comments.
Don't suppose you screenshotted any of that?
I didn't know. No,
well, next time someone sees something like that, screenshot it. Because that kind of thing is.
The last 2 weeks.
I've been busy. I've been busy.
3 and 4 in the morning preparing videos. Man, we need more people helping us out. And I thought, well, everybody's not taking this on. Everybody should be taking on Islam at this point, because what we're doing, we're seeing the underbelly of Islam as never before. We've never seen this underbelly like this, Bob. Not in my 40 years of experience have I seen it this easy. Not in my 40 years have I seen Muslims who cannot answer this question. Not in my 40 years have I seen people who have had to censor their own interviews, who have had to over and over and over again in that interview. Yasser Qadi says, we should not be talking about this. This is not for the masses to hear. Wait till this is finished. I cannot answer it in 20 minutes. Talk to me afterwards, but don't do it here, not in front of camera. You could see he was struggling, because there was the East. There was the traditional Islam breathing down his neck, saying, you've got to keep, you dare not continue in academia and not have an answer for this. You've got to have an answer. And I'm sitting there saying, yes, I'd like to hear your answer. Is it the Hafs text? Is it the Wadish text? Is it Al-Duri? Is it Hisham? Is it Kalu? Which one of these now 30? There's 30 official. Get it up now. The 10 that I talked about, and each of the 10 have 2 students. There's 20 students there. That means 30. Not one of them lives in the 7th century. Were doing their work in the 7th century. They were all born in the first 7 were all born in the beginning, the late 7th century, but they all died in the mid 8th century. The ones who are the transmitters, not one of them, look at, they're all 835, 860. This is 9th century. These are all 9. And look at Huff, 796. He was not even allowed. He was not even living. And this is fascinating that nobody's looking at
which means that Muhammad never saw the Hafs Quran.
Of course he didn't.
He never heard the Hafs Quran. He never saw it. He never laid fingers on it.
He didn't even see the first 7.
Yeah.
Those first 7 are for the next century. That's another 100 years later.
I think
this is why we all need to be saying this. People look at the dates. You can no longer say that there were 7 readings at the time of Muhammad. And here's what's really fascinating. Here's another one. Remember when the whole story about how the Quran was written comes from Al-Bukhari, volume 6, 509 and 510. And hadith number 510 is the only place where we see actually what happened with Uthman. That's in Uthman's time. That's 652. He gets a word from Hudayfa. Hudayfa says, what are we going to do with these people from Shams? Shams means Syria and Iraq. Today, Syria and Iraq. That's where the area of Syria and Iraq is today. They are reciting it differently than what we have it. What's going to happen when people hear that? They're going to think that we have changed our Quran like the Christians have done their Bible, right? That's what it says at the beginning of hadith number 510. Uthman then orders Zayd ibn Thabit, the secretary of Muhammad, to bring the copy that he had already made in 632, 20 years earlier, given to Abu Bakr, who gave to Umar, who gave to his daughter Hafsa. She put it under her bed. So this is 20 years later. He orders him to bring that copy that he had made 20 years later. And then he says, I'm going to give you 3 people. I'm going to give you Hisham, and I forget the other 2 names. Hisham, it doesn't matter. 3 of them, I'm going to give you 4. So there'll be 4 of you who are going to rewrite the Quran using Hafsa's copy as your original. You're going to rewrite it in the Qurayshi dialect, not from the Shams, because they have a different dialect. They have a different recitation. This is what Shabir Ali kept on repeating a month ago in his video that started this whole shebang. He came out during Ramadan and put out this video back on May 19th. It says, listen, all we're talking about is recitation. These are the 7 recitation. These are the 7 that Muhammad already knew about. These are the 7 that Muhammad had already heard. And that's why when Uthman turned towards Zayd ibn Thabit, I said, I want this written in the Qurayshi dialect. The Qurayshi means Mecca. That's what Muhammad would have spoken in Mecca and Medina. Okay? That's what the traditions tell us. You'll find out later on that there is no such thing as a Qurayshi dialect at all in the 7th century, but nonetheless, forget that for now. So write it in the Qurayshi dialect. It means it has to come from someone in Mecca or Medina, right? And then that copy is made. 4 copies, that was done. 4 copies are made and sent to Basra, Baghdad, Damascus, and 1 was left in Medina. That's in 652. We don't have any of those 4 copies. What I'd like to know is, okay, so we don't have the 4 copies. So what happens next? What happens then in the next century? And then what happens in the following century? It's not till the 9th century then that Al-Bukhari posits the idea that there were 7 of these readings, and that these 7 readings were existing at the time. 7 ways of saying the same thing in different dialects, okay? Like we have different dialects in English. 7 ways of saying the same thing in different dialects, and that these all existed at the time of Muhammad. And that's why Muhammad said there are 7 readings. And the man that canonized it then was a guy named Ibn Mujahid. Now, Ibn Mujahid died in 936. That's the 10th century, Bob. So we're talking about 300 years later that this idea of 7 readers is canonized. 300 years later. Is there anybody in the 7th century saying that? Can you find anybody at the time of Muhammad? Can you even find Muhammad anywhere?
Well, the sources are so slim on the ground.
Bingo.
The evidence is virtually non-existent.
Can you find anybody in the 8th century?
Here's the thing, Jay. It's an important point, Jay, because you've got the likes of Ijaz, who basically try to use the arguments of Bart Ehrman, and Bart Ehrman is saying, well, 1st century texts, we don't have the original autographs, and because we don't have these original autographs, therefore we cannot have any certainty about whether the Bible has been transmitted faithfully down through the centuries. And Ijaz uses that logic to attack the Bible. But yet, just as we pointed out, there's the actual number of resources coming from the 7th century is slim to non-existent.
Well, now you're moving into a whole different question now. Do you want to go there? It's what I want to talk about, but are we ready for that yet?
But I'm pointing out the fact that there is an inconsistency in the polemical argument being used by the Dawah team against the Christian faith.
Have you seen? You're talking about 2 different arguments now.
These 2 arguments are linked.
They are. One follows the other, but not in the minds of the Muslims. Remember, you've already moved into the Razm. You're now moving into the Razm argument. That's brilliant. I love the Razm argument, but we haven't finished with the Qira'at yet. The Qira'at is damaging in and of itself. The Qira'at argument are the recitations, the way you say it.
Yeah.
Forget. Yeah. I know you want to zip into the 7th century now. Hold on a minute. We'll get there. Hold on a minute. But before you do that, we have to shut this down first. We have to shut this argument down first.
Well, here's the thing, Jay. There was obviously some kind of miscommunication between us both, and we definitely need to sit down and talk about this. But I need to stop and I need to go.
That's okay.
I need to go get some food. So what I would like to do is, when me and you can coordinate ourselves properly, is later on this week, or you reply to your text messages, sir. Later on in this week, we organise to do this properly, and we sit down and we talk about these kind of arguments and we unpack them together. Would you be for that?
I don't think you've been following what's been going on, because this material that we're dealing with is hugely significant. This is foundational to everything Muslims believe. And I think everybody that's watching, go back and see what David and Wood and I put up 2 days ago. Back and see what David put up just today. Well, actually earlier about 16 hours ago. Look at those videos. The 2-hour video that we did 2 days ago covers everything. We covered everything that you want to talk about, and also, so it's all been done. It's all up there, and there are tens of thousands of people who are watching it. You need to get up to speed on this, because this is what you're going to have to use down at the speaker's corner. This is what you're going to have to use with the Ijaz Ahmads, and this whole thing that you want to move into, which is the Razm argument, is by far even more damaging. But we can't do that until you first finish off the Qur'an. So we can do that later on at another time, because you do need to go get something to eat.
Yeah. So let us. Would you be happy to come back on and do a proper show, a full 2-hour show, and talk about?
I'll do an hour show. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, an hour show. That's great for me. Brilliant.
I've got too many people that want my time right now, but I will give you, Bob.
You're in demand. You're in demand. It's because
this is what I've been working on for over 25 years. So this is our area of expertise.
Are you happy to see the fruit of your work?
Bob, I'm happy for it. And yes, listen, and I'm happy for Muslims to finally admit this in public. This is what's exciting, is that they're admitting it in public, and because they're admitting it in public, there's an enormous backlash from the traditional Islam. What Qadi said back on May 9th, he was saying it from his heart. He was saying, I am in between a rock and a hard place. And he said it maybe not once, not twice. You traditionalists, you in the East, he called them the East, you don't even know what you're up against. These guys over here, these academics, they're leaps and bounds ahead of what you're used to. You're not even heard you don't even know what they're throwing at you. You have no idea what you're up against, and you don't have any response. There is a big hole. He said there is an enormous hole that we don't know how to get out of. We haven't, and we're filling that hole. We're filling that hole with all kinds of questions. And he says these Westerners that I have to deal with, these academics, the world that I have to live in here in the United States, they are going way beyond this red line. You're still on that red line, and you think that will stop everything. No, you can't just memorize it has been preserved. It is, that we don't question it. This whole mantra that you can't stop doing that mantra. That doesn't get around. That doesn't play here in the West. You've got to answer these questions.
I watched a video. I watched a video of Dr. Yasser Qadi, and he basically said that he had already decided before he went into academia that his line was at the Quran, that he wouldn't go beyond that. So he had already decided from a point of piety, from a point of personal devotion, that he was never going to accept that any critique of the Quran could be valid. And he did that even before. And that's what he's on record as saying that. So that means that he's already decided that any critique of the Quran, any question of the Quran that forms a critique is an invalid question. But obviously that isn't the way you discover truth. And the Bible
over here in the East, and that's good if you're amongst your own kind, but it doesn't work over here in the West.
Doesn't work in the West. But the thing is that the Christian faith has undergone 300 years of the most intense interrogation. There has been no aspect of our faith that has not been questioned, that has not been challenged, and through it all, two things have stood as pillars without crumbling: the crucifixion of our Lord Jesus Christ and his resurrection, and upon this our entire faith is built.
Yep,
and and this is what everyone needs to realize, is that for 300 years they've tried to knock down the crucifixion, for 300 years they've tried to knock down the resurrection, and it still stands strong. The Quran is crumbling, and it hasn't even gone through 100 years of intense Western interrogation.
Oh, this just went through 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, it's been going through more than that, but it's kind of just starting to filter out to the populace.
Public in the last 2 weeks, Bob.
Yeah. It's and not even by you. Not even by you. It was Shabia Ali and Dr. Yasser Qadi that did it.
Thank God for them. Yeah.
Thank God for them. Yep, checks are in the post, guys. Checks are in the post. Thank you, Hijab.
From Bob himself.
From me personally to you guys, with much thanks.
From your
Anyway, guys.
God's ears, huh?
Yeah, so I'll arrange to meet with you again, Dr. Smith, and we'll speak properly and do a fuller show. Apologies for the miscommunications.
Not a problem.
All right. God bless. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Jay, could you just stay on momentarily while I end the broadcast, and then me and you will speak in private?
Yeah. I'm going to go get something to drink. I'll be right back.
Yeah. God bless, guys.